All right, good morning. My name is Chase Nishi, Chairperson of the Authority. I'd like to now call to order the October 4th, 2023 Heeia Authority meeting of the Hawaii Community Development Authority. And the time is now 10:36.
Thank you, Chair. In accordance with section 92-3.7 Hawaii Revised Statutes, the Hawaii Community Development Authority is holding today's Heeia board meeting virtually on Zoom. The Zoom link details were included on the meeting agenda. Therefore, members of the public are welcome to join us on Zoom and also at our physical meeting site at the American Brewery Building, 547 Queen Street, second floor, boardroom, Honolulu, Hawaii 96813. The HCD communication staff is hosting this meeting. Once this meeting begins, everyone will be muted for clearer audio. Board members, if you have any comments or questions, please unmute yourself to speak. This is a public virtual meeting, so to prevent any distractions, if you are not a board member, staff member, or HCD's Attorney General, please turn off your video during the meeting. If you are providing public testimony, your name will be called accordingly. Please turn your video on, clearly state your name, affiliation, and proceed with your testimony. When you have finished, please turn off your video. In accordance with section 92-3.7C Hawaii Revised Statutes, if the authority's ICT connection for the remote meeting is lost, the meeting will be recessed until the connection is restored. If the connection cannot be restored within 30 minutes, the meeting will be terminated and the authority will continue the meeting at another notice date. Thank you. Chair.
HCDA board members, please remain visible and audible during the meeting. Also, please acknowledge you are present by either saying here or present. Thank you. Let the record reflect the following members are present. Vice Chair Heeia.
Present.
Member Miranda Johnson.
Present.
Member Anderson.
Present.
Member Evans.
Present.
Member Light.
Present.
Chair, we have quorum.
Excellent. For today's meeting, board members will have an opportunity to ask questions or provide comments after an agenda item has been presented. The individuals from the public who have requested to provide verbal public testimony on a specific agenda item are on standby and will be permitted into the meeting respectively. The first agenda item is our regular meeting minutes of January 4, 2023. Board members, are there any comments or corrections to these minutes? If there are no comments or questions, the minutes are approved as presented. Agenda item number 2 for information and discussion. Presentation by the Executive Director of Kako'o Oiwi, the Lisi of the Heeia Community Development District, updating the authority on the activities and accomplishments for the year 2023. Mr. Kanekoa Schultz, Executive Director, will now make the presentation.
Okay, hey, aloha kako. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we
Yes, you
can.
can, yeah.
Okay, can you see me okay?
We see your presentation.
Okay, well that's fine. We'll just stick with the presentation first, and then I'll
see.
go with just visible, and then I'll probably drive you around the property so you can kind of see where we are. Just in addition. Yep. Okay, we're good. Okay,
we're
so
good.
on behalf of Chair and HCDA Board, thank you for the time to talk to you guys about what we've been accomplished at Kako'iwi over the last year. We really appreciate the partnership with HCDA and obviously within the NER. The military is doing flybys right now, so there's a big C-5 flying over us pretty soon. So if it gets a little loud, just bear with me and I apologize. Okay, so obviously this is the aerial image of our wetland area. Next slide, please. Yeah, so the primary activities that we've done for this year was focusing on kind of 3 things: focusing on education, conservation, and the development of the food areas. And it's important to note for the HCDA board that Hawaiian agriculture not only provides economics, jobs, obviously cultural activities, but also provides ecosystem services. And so endangered bird habitat, we have about 30 alai'ula and another 15 ai'o. There are only 400 alai'ula left in the world, so it is a sizable number. And then in addition with IO, Alai Ke'o, and then our Auku'us. Within the Lo'i systems too, they also function with that additional ecosystem service of retainment basins. And for the chairs, if I've already said this, I can move on. But bear with me then. As you're walking on the beach and you walking in the sand and the wave washes up and the wave recedes, each one of your footprints holds water. Yeah. And so if similar to your footsteps on the beach, on the shoreline, Lo'ikalo functions similarly. So when the ko'olaus open up and every valley, every waterfall in every valley is flowing through it, it flows to the Heeia wetlands. And so by having taro patches and Lo'ikalo established, they basically can hold the water. So in 1 foot of water in 1 acre, you hold a little bit under 500,000 gallons of water, right? So if you have 100 acres that can hold 1 foot of water, you're looking at about 5 million gallons. Okay. So, sorry, 50 million gallons. Hello. If we have some of our kuona that are built that can hold 5 feet, and so now you multiply that again by 5, so now you're looking at 250 million gallons per rain event. Yes, and so if you have 6 rain events per year, you're looking at 1.5 billion gallons held. You know what I'm saying? So that's a traditional system that can still bank water. And of course, if you have any questions, please chime in. Yeah. So that's kind of that focus on it. In addition to the constructed wetlands, we talked about the 20 acres of wetlands. We're also looking at 51 acres of total Lo'ikalo and wetlands together. So that was the 24 acres of mangrove area that we've cleared, and then the 31 or 27 acres of hillside that were also our Lo'ikalo systems that we're in the process of building out right now. Okay, next slide, please. Next slide, please. Sorry.
Next slide is on.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Sorry for mine, maybe, and then obviously looking at the overall acres of where Kakuivi is working in. We obviously are looking at communities. So right now, as I'm giving this presentation, we have King Intermediate School over here, and the kids walk over and they have their own little Lo'i section in the front. And so that's kind of the build out. Next slide, please. Yeah, and so this is a 1928 aerial image to my right. And that image is important because you see most of that land in Taro. Mr. Fukura and Mr. Sadamu, when they were growing up, they were kind of more by the Mormon church area of today, and their family farmed taro. So rice had already kind of been transitioning out in the early turn of the 20th century. Yeah, so 1910, it was already kind of getting phased out to taro. What's also important about that image is you see the fish pond. And so at Kakoivi and within the HCDA authority, obviously Kameme Schools is part of that, but also right outside of our authority lands is the fish pond. And so that kind of it coincides together. One, in that the sediment that we are able to trap and hold in our lo'is obviously benefit the fish pond. And then as sea level rise, storm surge occurs, having that fish pond below us helps us to protect the basal waterlands from getting too mixed. So in some areas, if you just have a shoreline, you'll see brackish water inundate much further. Whereas here at Kakuivi, because we have that fish pond below, we've seemed to be a little less, hopefully more resilient to sea level impacts. Yeah, there's obviously sea level will rise, but that Loko'ia kind of protects us from that storm surge. The image to the left is basically in the light blue is obviously the fish pond, and there you can see the different taro patches systems that we're in the process of building out right now. So you can kind of see we're in the center section, and if we're fortunate to get the bipartisan infrastructure law grants, we'll be working kind of closer towards Kahikili and kind of taking the middle section. And then as that happens with the state funding requests, which HCDA is part of for the Alaloa Bridge area, we'll be hitting that kind of bottom section of the picture. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. Next slide, please. Yeah, so it's just a little bit more in detail to kind of go and see the different areas. And so the other portion of our area, which is the hillside, is we're in the process now of building up the food forests. And we will be starting the removal of the albizia, which is obviously a non-native species that can really lead to a lot of runoff. Next slide, please. So the next slides are going to be focused more on just some images and areas. Yeah. So this is an aerial view of the whole Ahupua of Heeia. Community schools lands with the fish pond, and then that back wetland is obviously our location, and then the hillside on the right, which is called Kauhelo, is that 100 acres of hillside that HCDA has. Okay, next slide, please. Yeah, so just to reiterate, we have 24 acres of wetland restoration location area, and that's where the majority of our birds are thriving right now. And so that location is when you're driving out to Heeia State Park, everything on your left from Mauka, which was once the kind of the Stink Bridge mangrove, has now been cleared and opened up for the whole wetland restoration. In addition, the corridor section, which is where the Lo'i Kalu is, there's some stream management areas that we're also doing. The image to the right is just basically of us working with the keiki on educating and talking about kind of a living nursery. The Alalua Bridge money or funding that I alluded to was designed to hopefully have where Heeia Elementary can just walk to the site. And we felt within the Heeia community, it was really important for our children to just get that experience. And with the price of buses being so high right now, having the kids walk to a location would just obviously make it much more reasonable for them to have a much more outdoor experience there. For the HCDA board, obviously, we are concerned that as we bring more students and children through there, I think the neighbors might not be as appreciative of that. And so working with our neighbors and trying to figure out the best way that we can do it. But it is more important, I feel, to keep our children educated about the marine environment and the stream environment. Then, yeah, we can talk about that more. Next slide, please. Yeah, so sustainable food systems and green infrastructure are kind of our bigger ones we're hitting on too. So that image to the left is of us doing the kulolo. And so those sales have been steadily increasing. And not only are we doing kulolo, but we also are doing kulolo crunch, obviously poi, luau stew, and everything out of that commercial kitchen we're tied to. And slowly our revenues are doubling, which is nice for the rent that we owe for HCDA as part of that partnership. And then obviously I kind of alluded to that in the beginning of the conversation about the green infrastructure. And so how the Lo'i Kalu, the Lo'i Wai system can function as retainment basins during flood events and also provide endangered habitat for birds. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is the image of the alai ula. And like I said, there's only about 400 of those birds left. When you go to Kailua, to Kalapawai Market for dinner, it's the same 7. So people think there's a lot of alai ula around, but it's really those ones have been acclimated to the alai, to the area. So there's actually not very many alai ula left in the world. And so we've been fortunate, like I said, to have over around 30 of them and just, yeah, thriving, doing really well. Next slide, please. These are of Ai'o. These are the white and black Hawaiian stilts. And they usually thrive in harems. And this is an image also of our wetland area. So this was once mangrove forest that has been cleared and opened. And some of the invasive species root mats were taken out. And now you have these open waterways. I cannot stress the control of invasive species have really helped to have these endangered birds thrive. Next slide, please. Yeah, and so this image here just gives you the context of where the Heeia Nur is and the Heeia wetlands are and the HCDA land in relation to all of Kaneohe Bay. So Heeia is focused in that center section. So it's important to know HCDA is one of the leading land areas that can help to the whole restoration of the bay. If we can bank and hold the middle section of the water, then basically half of the polluting sources are removed. Yeah. And so that means protecting the shoreline, protecting the 6 miles of coastal areas of houses and reef systems. Yeah, so it's it's an important piece of that broader saving of the Kaneohe Bay overall, and definitely the southern portion of Kaneohe Bay. Any questions so far? In this image, you see Mokapu, obviously out the Kaneohe Marine Corps base, out in the out in the peninsula, and then the highlighted green area is the HCDA property.
We have a
Authority.
question. Member
Yes.
Evans?
Yep.
Member
Yes.
Evans?
Hi.
Hi, thank you. Conservation International says that mangroves are a protective feature in other parts of the world.
Absolutely.
And so I was wondering, you've made a decision to clear them here. Can you kind of share what your thinking was on that approach to reducing the risk from storm surge and other dangers?
Absolutely. Mangrove is absolutely one of the most important species in the coastal communities of where it's native. Obviously, mangrove is a non-native species in Hawaii, and so when we did our initial federal surveys long ago, we had a species list of 7.
Mhm.
Of those 7, only 1 was native,
Mhm.
and that was the auku'u. And the reason for that was that the canopy that was created, one, it might have been how the mangrove was planted so long ago, so tight, that instead of growing, these beautiful buttress systems like cathedrals, they basically went straight up. And
Mhm.
so when we brought our colleagues, Nature Conservancy is one of our partners, also CI is also a partner. But when we brought the Nature Conservancy researchers in, they were just surprised at how the Florida mangrove, Rhizophila mangale, was acting in Hawaii. Usually you'll see an 80-year-old tree that might be 50 feet high and 60 feet wide.
Mhm.
Here in Hawaii, you were seeing these 80-year-old trees maybe 70 feet high and 6 feet wide, right? And so what that created was this really high canopy of almost 30, 40 feet, right? That went straight up and down. So the amount of leaf litter that was being deposited was really condensed to just a 6-foot section versus being spread out over, 10 feet over 40 feet. Does that make sense? And so we had some of the highest densities of sediment of leaf litter, right? And obviously with our partners at CI and the Nature Conservancy, they don't want to just publish, they won't publish an article talking about the detrimental impacts of mangrove on sedimentation, because everywhere else in the world you see it as a sink, whereas here they're actually showing it as a source. And the best example I can say was as the mangrove was cleared, the sand returned to the fish pond and in front of the bay. Does that make sense? So we saw that as we restored it, and the native species or the species list in Heeia actually went up to about 37. We were seeing again Mauhauhele, which is the purple hibiscus, returning. Obviously, we saw no endangered birds in the forest area except for the auku'u. And once that happened, you could start to hear the sounds and everything come back. So I will never doubt that in a native system, mangrove is ideally what it should be. But in a Hawaii system that never evolved at all with mangrove, I would rely heavily on the native systems that provided those same kinds of vertical structures in the water or on the land. Does that make sense? So that was the reason for the clearing of the mangrove. Mangrove is an important place, but it's not perfect in Hawaii. And I would say the native wetland systems, the Mauhauhele, the Akeake, the Neke, the Ahu'awa, the shoreline Ilima, the coastal Naupaka, those are the species that our natives have evolved with. And that's something that we want to grow. Does that, you know what I mean? So you can still build that structure, but not have that mangrove there. If
Thank
that
you.
makes sense. Yeah, sorry.
Thank you
But
very
I'm 100% supporter of mangrove. Don't get me wrong. Like, we love the mangrove. We just don't love it in Hawaii. So, yeah.
Actually, that's the best explanation I've heard, and I appreciate you taking the time to share that with me.
No.
Thank you.
And-
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
And I always welcome the board. I know there's sunshine rules, but if the entire HCD board ever wants to come out to Heeia, I would love to give a tour. And I know we tried something, and I think I forget, it was probably me, but we'd love to reschedule. So
Thank you.
next slide, please. Yeah. This is just not only are we looking at land restoration, but we're looking at education. So this is some of the invasive seaweeds that we've collected with our partners at 2023.10.04 Heeia. And this was emu that we're cooking in conjunction with our commercial kitchen. This wasn't sold, though it was donated out. So three pigs from a Waianae pig farmer had to get rid of those pigs, so it was donated to us, and with the community we cooked it. And so some of this pig went to Key Project, another part of the pig went to the little home, and then it was part of our community workday food for the first quarter of the year. So just a yeah. Next slide, please. Yeah, so in this image is basically, we talked about the retainment basins. Yeah, and so this is the image of how the local Heeia, the fish pond itself, can function as a retainment basin. It's actually not a photo that we like a lot, but just to give to the authority that when you have a fish pond present, it can truly hold a fair amount of sediment and not have it go out on the coral reefs below. So when we talk about educating our partners within Waikiki and the restoration of the Alawai Golf Course, imagine, because HCDA, you guys are so progressive, we have that system intact here. Whereas when you look at the Alawai area, if there's a brown water advisory, it shuts on Waikiki. But if we had fish ponds in the Alawai area, we could probably hold a fair amount of the sediment there. And this image right here, so we have the local Heeia below, the fish pond below, and then the taro patches above. And so as Kakawiwi, along with HCDA, can open up another 200 acres of taro patches, we can then extend the ability to retain water further and further up, just as an ecosystem service part. Next slide, please. Yeah, so the rest are just photos, images of He'e and the authority area, so that you guys get a good perspective on aerial shots. Next slide, please. Yeah. Yeah. And so this is just a cleared area. You see the eye growing in. And so that ground is really bare because we covered it with black plastic and then pulled the black plastic back, let the invasive grasses grow and the natives grow in. You remove the natives and then you cover it back up with black plastic, thus killing the invasive seed bank. And then you basically just keep doing that about 3 times. And then at the third part, you bring the natives back that you removed, and then you let it kind of go in to give it that extra competitive advantage. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, next slide, please. And I think that was the last slide. Yeah. Oh, this is of the corridor section. This is the bigger location where we're looking to bank that 5 feet of water. And we've already started to plant in these sections here now. Next slide, please. Yeah. Okay. And one more slide. Yeah. So just please come out when you have time. And thank you. Happy to answer any questions. Or I can put the camera on and we can kind of walk around and see the different sections if you'd like.
Right, members, do you have any questions for Kaneko Associates? Member Evans? Member Evans, you had a question? Your hand's up yet?
Sorry,
Oh,
no,
no? Oh, okay, great. The question. Is there a question? Oh, member Light.
Aloha, aloha. It's not really a question. I just want to say mahalo for all the continued work that you folks are doing. I think you're in He'eia, but also I'm reminded of the models that you folks are, really leading in, that places like Waikiki and others can really learn from. Not that it's cookie cutter, but I think the lessons learned that we can glean across these different communities are really important. So just want to say mahalo for the leadership that you folks continue to demonstrate for all of us.
Hallelujah. Oy. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Any other comments or questions? If not, is there any public testimony?
I didn't see none.
Okay.
No testimony.
Okay. All right, so at this time, I want to thank Kanikoa. Thank you very much for your presentation and your update. It's always great to see all the great work and interesting work that you're doing there for Hawaii and for the community out at Heeia.
I appreciate you guys' time. Yeah.
And you wanted to show us something, Kanikoa?
No, I mean, if you, no, I know you guys are busy, so I don't want to take up more of your time. I'll just say, please come out to the property when you guys have time, and I would love to just give you guys a more in-depth tour of different aspects of the area. I just was like, I don't know if you can see the alai ula in the back. Are you seeing those two right there?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, no, I just anyway, it's a beautiful location, and you know we appreciate HCDA and its ability to community develop. There's a blue predatory dragonfly. Anyway, come out when you guys can. I appreciate your time. I know your time is precious too. So, all right, have a good day though.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, aloha.
Aloha. All right, there's no one else on Zoom, right? So thank you for those who have joined us on Zoom or in person. This concludes our business for today. And the meeting is now adjourned and it is 11:02. Thank you. And then we're gonna start right into Kailailoa.